Dear friends, Henry, Gordon, and James have been grumpy lately. They were jealous because Thomas had been asked to visit the National Railway Museum in York. The Fat Controller was afraid that they would go on strike, but they didn't. "If Thomas wants to be a museum piece," they said to each other, "what's that to do with us?" Meanwhile, Thomas was enjoying himself. I hope you will enjoy reading about how he did so. The author. "It's disgraceful!" shouted Gordon. "Why should Thomas go to the museum? He never had any experience going to York, but I have. I should be the one who goes there. I was built on the other railway where my brother and cousins are. It would be a brilliant reunion for me to see them again." "Not only that, but he is getting old, so maybe he should stay there for the rest of his life."
"But it's not fair. Thomas always gets the most attention, leaving us to be the main background engines. And yet Gordon and I have been on this railway much longer before him, so we should be the ones to get the most attention, not him."
"Gee, thanks for leaving me in the dust for that." The big, jealous engines continued ignoring Thomas at the station. He tried to get their attention, but they wouldn't pay any attention to him. He knew it was because of going to York, but even he didn't understand why he was going there. He spoke to Percy and Toby at the sheds that night. "I just don't get it. Why am I the chosen one to go to York for the railway show?" "Because you're the most popular engine this island has ever had."
Yeah, just like in the old books we were all in.
"True, but not a lot of people have seen me in real life."
What do you mean? Of course they have.
"Well, in the TV series, you mean?"
Right, that's what I meant. Anyway, Sir Topham had told us all about it, and we're proud of you.
"We would love to come, but who would even take care of the branch line while you're away?" Thomas thanked his two friends for cheering him up. Now he was even more excited than ever. Every morning he would ask his driver, "How many more days left till we go to York?" And his driver would always reply,
"It's one day less away from the same question you asked before. Keep it up, and people will actually think you want to be a part of the museum."
Thomas just couldn't keep his excitement under control. His boiler was bubbling and his wheels were shaking. The bigger engines are just jealous of me because I'm going there and they're not. Are there any other engines at the railway show that I'm going to?
"Wait, I heard it. There are, but I'm not sure who. That we'll just wait and see."
That made Thomas even more excited. He wasn't sure how much longer he can wait. The wait was finally over when the day came. Thomas was at the station whistling cheerfully at the passengers who were cheering at him and waving goodbye as well. Sir Topham was there to wish him good luck.
"Goodbye, Thomas. Be really useful over there. Enjoy yourself and be a credit to our railway."
Thomas blew his whistle and set off to the other railway. He got plenty of coal and water before he left, so he was good to go without any stops. It was a slow run, but he knew he could make it to the bridge border that takes him to where he needs to go. In the middle of his journey, it started to rain all of a sudden. The signalman got the news that he was getting close, so he opened the gates, but then there was trouble. The wind was blowing so hard that it broke the lock on one of the gates. It swung back and forth and making so much noise. Thomas was getting closer to the bridge, so the signalman ran out to try to keep it open, but it was no use. He grabbed his red flag to try to warn him about the gates. Thomas was in a happy mood. He was gazing into the cloudy sky thinking about the railway show, when all of a sudden he could see the signalman waving his flag. He knew that meant danger, so he immediately put on his brakes. He could see the gates up ahead of him, so he tried to stop even harder, but the wet rails from the rain made him slide on the rails. Then came trouble. Luckily, no one was badly hurt, but his buffers were damaged and he can't go any further. So the single man ran to his telephone to call for some help, while his driver was checking him out.
I'm afraid we can't go any further, Thomas. So we'll have someone help us continue our journey to York.
Bother! Just when I thought things will get much better. How are we going to get there by tomorrow now?
Don't worry, they'll think of a way for us.
And with that, the rain started to get worse. Later that day, Thomas was put onto a siding and was feeling very upset. His fire was out and his buffers were damaged very badly from crashing into the gate. He thought his journey to York was going to be careful, but he learned that he was wrong when the inspector came with good news.
You'll be fixed for the railway show in York tomorrow. The repair yard will be waiting for you so they can get you repaired on time.
Oh, that's fantastic! But how am I supposed to get there on time? You know that I'm badly damaged to the point that I can't even move?
Well, that's another thing I talked to them about too. And they're going to bring a lorry to help you get there on time.
Wait, what? A lorry?
Yes, Thomas. He'll be here by 8 o'clock in the morning to pick you up. So you'd better be ready for that.
Thomas didn't like the idea. He knew he would look silly riding on the lorry. He didn't get a good night's sleep that night. He couldn't stop thinking about what would happen when he rides on it. And he could have sworn that he can hear the big engines laughing about it all the way from the sheds. The next morning, the lorry came early to start taking him to York. The cable was hooked up to Thomas, and the next thing he knew, he was on a lorry. Ugh, this is very undignifying. What are the engines going to think when they see me riding on this? But when they were on the road, Thomas changed his mind and found the trip lovely. But that didn't last very long. He ended up feeling bored since there was nothing else to look at. And because he didn't get a lot of sleep, he ended up falling asleep for most of the trip. When he woke up, he spotted houses and trees to look at. That was when he realized he was in York. Wow! I was so tired that I didn't need to stay awake for most of the road trip. Then he saw a man with a flat hat walking up towards him when they stopped for a light of change. He was very confused and tried to be friendly. Hello, I'm Thomas. The man didn't say anything and asked the driver to walk out to talk to him. Thomas couldn't figure out what they were talking about, but it wasn't a good conversation when the man left. The driver climbed back into the lorry and slammed the door. He was very annoyed. When they arrived at the repair yards, Thomas was unloaded and the lorry drove away. He couldn't believe that he made it and was very excited to begin his journey after he gets fixed. Just then, his driver and fireman walked up to him.
So, Thomas, how did it feel to ride on the lorry for the first time?
He told them that it was fun at first, but then fell asleep most of the ride. Then he told them about a man with a flat hat and making the lorry driver upset. His driver and fireman started laughing and explained to him what it was about.
That was a cop, Thomas. He gave the driver a ticket for carrying an engine on the road. I don't know how you did it, but I do know that it will make Sir Topham Hatt's day when he hears about this.
Then Thomas started laughing as well, and waited for the repair crew to start fixing him. The workmen immediately started fixing Thomas, just like they said they would. He couldn't wait for them to finish so he can get started on his new adventure. Next to him was another engine. He looked like the Flying Scotsman, except he's smaller and had a name on his side that says Green Arrow.
You must be Thomas. I've heard about you. The Flying Scotsman and the city of Turo told me a lot about you.
Really? Like what?
Well, they told me that you're the most useful engine on Sodor. And the most popular engine as well.
Gee, I never thought about myself like that. What about my friends?
Oh, they told me all about them as well. Flying Scotsman told me about how he gives Gordon a rough time whenever he's there, since he's his brother. And Turo told me about how he was visiting Sodor at your sheds, and how you would all talk about whatever all night long when he was there.
Really? Is that all?
Well, if I remember correctly, Gordon, Duck, and Big City Engine had a massive debate about what's the name of the big engine in London that Gordon had a chance to go there and take a look to see if he was right or not.
Yeah, he was pretty upset about that when he came back to Sodor knowing that it wasn't King's Cross anymore. He sure had a rough day after he came back. Wait a minute, who told you about that?
Oh, right. It was Big City Engine himself who told me and some others about it. He sure had a big smile on his face when he told me and the others.
I wonder if I should tell Gordon about that and see how he reacts to it. Anyway, enough about me. What about you?
Well, there used to be more of my type. My siblings and I were built here so we can pull freight cars. But we did so well that we were able to pull passenger trains as well.
But what happened?
They either ended up working on the other railways or got scrapped, leaving me to be the last one on this railway.
Gee, I'm very sorry about that. Does that make you feel alone?
Well, as much as I miss the ones I was close with, I'm just more happy that I have my friends here who I can be around with. We're like a family. You know what that's like, right?
Oh yeah, I sure do. Heck, I'm just glad that I came to Sodor before a bunch of more engines came to work on the island. The engines laughed and continued talking till Thomas was fixed and ready to go. He didn't want to leave Green Arrow behind, but he knew that he had to do the reasons why he came here. It was nice talking to you, Green Arrow. I hope we can see each other again before I finish my visit.
We'll see about that, mate. Cheers, and good luck.
Will do, my friend. Bye. After Thomas left the yards, he went to the railway show and he couldn't believe his eyes. There were so many people and engines around him, and a lot of them said hello to him, and Thomas said hi back. He was moved to a different position to start his job for the show. His driver talked to him.
Don't worry so much, Thomas. Your first job isn't so hard after all. It'll be like pulling your coaches on your branch line again. Plus, you're quite the big star here, so it's even better with you getting all the attention.
That's being a credit to Sir Topham Hatt's railway, isn't it?
Oh yeah, we'll show everyone how we do it in a bit.
That made Thomas even more excited for his first job on the railway show. Just then, an old-looking engine with a mustache stopped in front of him. He was weird-looking as well. He didn't even have a tender as well, but Tom smiled at him and was being nice to him. Hello there, my name's Thomas. What's yours?
Well, howdy there, Thomas. My name is the Iron Duke.
I heard about you from the other engines and the Show Code Railway Series books. From the way they talk about you, you seem pretty popular from where you came from. Yep, that sounds about right. At least it helps keep our railway running. Your relatives must be very grateful to have you working with them. What brings you here this time, young engine? Well, I was asked to visit and help work here while the railway show is going. From the sounds of things, I'm going to pull some express coaches. I'm really good with that. Well, Thomas, I've seen what the coaches are like from where you're from, and the ones you're going to pull aren't like that at all. What do you mean by that? You see, young engine, the first coach is really narrow, while the third coach used to be pulled by me 100 years ago. Railways like the Northwestern Railway use those type of coaches a lot till they started upgrading them to what you know today. Now it's really small rides where they're used for now. They're old and need to be used carefully, so do your best not to break them. Wow, you know so much about them. I'll do my best to be careful with the coaches. That's what happens when you're built in the early years of the railways and see all the changes that happened. Thomas wondered if Doug knew about the old wise engine and the old coaches. Then there'll be something to talk about that's Great Western. Not only did Thomas have to take great care of the coaches because of how old they are, but it's also because of how many passengers there were. Some of them weren't being careful themselves as they should be. And that was making him anxious about the whole thing. Seems like we need to keep an extra eye on the rails driver. What if a child wasn't paying attention and got onto the tracks? Then we'd be in serious trouble.
I agree, Thomas.
Thomas continued to feel anxious with the crowds around him, and he was thinking of what if he can't stop in time if something was in the way. Apparently, that came true at closing time. Something flew in the air and landed in front of him. He immediately put his brakes on and did his best to stop on time, but he couldn't. He ran over a bag of fruits and vegetables, and they splattered into the air and damaged his wheels. A cloud of steam came out and frightened the small boy and cried out to his mother. Mommy, the blue engine is scary! I want to go home! Then the angry mother looked sternly at Thomas.
This is your fault. I'm going to talk to the manager about you scaring my child.
Thomas rolled his eyes, ignoring the annoying mother, and was more worried about the mess in his wheels. His driver and fireman checked to see if there was any damage. Then they talked to him with bad news.
Damn. Your brakes are damaged. I'm afraid you'll have to go back to the repair yard to have them fixed. There'll be no more working for you for a while.
Great. Now I won't be the credit on the railway anymore.
Don't say something like that, Thomas. You did great out there. Just be thankful it wasn't a careless child and instead of a grocery bag. Besides, you're still going to work till the railway show is over, so that means you're still going to be a credit to our railway.
Thomas was pleased to hear that, but he was still frustrated that he'll have to go back to the repair yards after just one day. He hopes that he wouldn't have to go back for a third time. It was one of Thomas's final days being in York, and he and the other engines were very excited because a special train needed to be pulled to the seaside. Thomas was imagining what it'll be like to pull this special train, while the others were debating on who it'll be.
I'm sure it'll be me. I'm the shiniest engine on this railway, and it'd be perfect to show the passengers my new paintwork. Plus, the seaside area helped me with my repairs.
The engines were confused on what he meant on that, but ignored him and continued to argue. When it was time for an engine to pull the train, Green Arrow was chosen, and he was very happy. Thomas knew he wasn't going to be the chosen one, but he was also proud for his new friend. When he stopped at the station to wish him luck, Green Arrow was telling him about the passengers.
I've never seen this many passengers before, Thomas. I hope they don't make the coaches heavier than it already is.
Oh, you think that's a lot of passengers? You should see how many we get back on Soldor. Thankfully, we have enough coaches and engines to pull them so they don't cause any damage for any of us. Then they heard the crew talking about adding some extra coaches, but that was impossible with only one engine to pull them all.
I just don't know about this. Even if it's too many coaches for him to pull, who's to say that Green Arrow won't be able to cause an accident of his own?
That won't be necessary. I can pull lots of coaches. In fact, I used to do it during the war with my brothers, so I'm sure I can pull all of them.
Can I help? I'm sure Green Arrow needs some extra strength to pull so many coaches just in case.
Well, I guess you can. I don't see why not.
Thomas was very happy to have the promotion. Early the next morning, Thomas's crew was getting him ready to go. His driver made sure all of his driving parts weren't stuck, and his fireman was getting his fire warmed up. Green Arrow was getting ready as well. He was excited and couldn't wait to get going. At last, it was time to go. But what they didn't expect was that there were even more passengers than yesterday. It seemed like as if the station didn't get any smaller. The two engines were surprised to see that many passengers. Even a handful of them were already in the coaches, and yet it seemed to not be enough. But Thomas and Green Arrow were going to pull them anyway. Green Arrow was coupled to the coaches, and Thomas got coupled up to Green Arrow and waited for the rest of the passengers to get in. After they did, the engines blew their whistles and set off to the seaside. Thomas was loving every single thing he was seeing during his run. It felt like he was somewhere new right after York, as if he was in a different country. When they got there, the two engines got uncoupled so they can use the turntable to go to the other side of the train and go back to the station facing forward. After they did that, they watched the passengers taking pictures of the amazing sight of the sandy beaches and the beautiful clear blue ocean. It was like if no one wanted to leave the seaside, but everyone knew that they needed to get back. So all the passengers climbed back into the coaches and the engine started to head back to the station. On their way back, they went through a curve that was right by the river, and a group of people waved and cheered at them. But Thomas paid no attention to them because he could see something strange on the tracks. Ahead of them, he knew they needed to stop right away, so he blew his whistle and shouted to both his crew and Green Arrow, "Stop! Stop!" Immediately, both crews pulled the brakes, but the heavy train was pushing them and they pulled on to their brakes even harder. At last, they stopped just in time.
What's the matter, Thomas?
Something isn't right with the rails. I think the inspector should see the problem. And indeed he did. He checked out on what was wrong with the rails. Then he found the problem.
The river has undermined the embankment. That's why the rails here are lower than the ones next to us. I'll call the signalman about this, and then we'll see what to do.
After the inspector called the signalman, a lot of buses came to help with the passengers, to drop them home. But after they left, it was getting late, leaving Thomas, Green Arrow, both their crews, and the heavy coaches left on the tracks. They all agreed that it was safer to use the other tracks so they can get back to the sheds in one piece. Phew! That was a close one.
I'll say. Now let's get you back to York so we can be in the sheds.
I agree. I think that's enough coaches to pull today. A few days later, the grand finale of the railway show arrived. Many people came to see it happen. Thomas was surprised to see so many people checking him out. They recognized him from the books, and the children were very happy to see him the most. But what got him surprised the most was that the boss, the manager, and Sir Topham Hatt were there as well. Oh boy, how am I going to explain to him about all the events that happened here? But Sir Topham Hatt didn't seem upset at all. He was smiling. Thomas went from being nervous to confusion. From the looks of things, both the manager and the boss of the railway were telling him all about Thomas's journey in New York. Then the boss started talking to the people.
Attention everyone. I want to give a big thanks to an engine who came to help around while the show was going. Thomas from the island of Sodor.
Thomas was surprised at this. He thought he was in serious trouble. I don't understand. What's going on?
Thomas, your controller has told me everything about you and being a really useful engine. And he's right. From saving everyone and one of my engines from a nasty accident, I think you deserve to be in honor of the National Railway Collection. This plate here will remind you of your visit here and how hard you tried to help make the railway show possible. We'll also have one of our own for the museum as a reminder to others that you once came here to help us and visit.
Thomas was amazed. His eyes were wide and didn't know what to say, but he didn't need to say anything. Everyone cheered for him and the engine blew their whistles in joy. Thomas never felt super special in his life. He was very happy to the point where he wanted to let out tears from his eyes. Just then Sir Topham Hatt walked up to him.
See, Thomas, I knew you would be a pride of our line and a new credit to this railway. You are a really useful engine, and I can't think of anyone else to be here.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone, for letting me be in the railway show this year. And he let out a big whistle, knowing he did the right thing and can't wait to get back to Sodor to see his old friends. But that doesn't mean he didn't care about his new friends. He told them that he'll try to come back soon to see them again.